Hello again, everybody. This is the vlog Life After Trauma, and today we'll be focusing on depression. Depression affects a lot of people, and it's pretty close to home for me as I have it, and so does my mom. And so, interestingly enough, researching this was very difficult. Makes sense, but it was also really intuitive and just informational, educational for the roots of it. And it doesn't have to come from traumatic experience, but I think it often does. Essentially, depression can be spurred by grief, loss, abandonment, and isolation, and just it comes and questions a lot of somebody's self-worth and just value, inherent value that they perceive in themselves, and it heightens suicide potential by a lot. That was something I found in a lot of the literature is increased suicidality, and just the numbers show that depression and suicide tend to go hand in hand, and just that's a really scary reality for a lot of people. And it would be even scarier, I think, if somebody went through something and it made them feel this way and they didn't connect those dots. You know what I mean? Like if they went through something traumatic, like sexual assault or a war experience, something that drastically altered the way that they viewed the world, so much so that they began to view themselves poorly and negatively. I think that'd be really frightening. And as someone with it, it is very frightening. So I think it's okay to just sit in that, just lament in that, because the last episode of this podcast will present you with, all right, what do I do now? But I want to take you on this journey of here's a side effect, here's another symptom, here's another after effect of trauma, and just sit in the pain of that. Because the people you're going to interact with that have gone through trauma are also sitting in the pain of that. And they're also facing the hurt of that. And I just want to kind of simulate that that's something they're going through all the time. And allow yourself to be hurt by it, allow yourself to wrestle with it and ask why it happens, because it's hard. And I want that to be okay. I want this to be a space where that's okay. Psychotic depression is like an elevated level of depression, and it is elevated by this belief of a presence of non-existent internal and external threats, such as like paranoia, voices heard, and sounds heard that just don't seem to correspond with reality. They can go back to the traumatic event, but not always. And it's different than a flashback. It's more like a manufactured voice in one's head, or just this all-around feeling of paranoia. I think depression is really stigmatized in our culture, and so as listeners of this podcast, pursuing empathy and understanding, I just hope that you move forward with a belief about depression that first take it as it is and believe it to be real and authentic and valid before questioning it, because I think a lot of people are used to that questioning side. And in my personal experience, this isn't necessarily substantiated by research, but I do think that it's better to believe someone first rather than question their integrity and judge them, just because I think they're having a hard time believing it themselves. So if they're opening up to you about their feelings in this situation with this just depressive state, they're putting a lot of trust in you, and they are already so fragile in terms of their self-worth that you questioning it right away could be more harmful than the depression that they are actually facing, which is a really scary reality. And it puts a lot on you as someone that's consoling them, or maybe it's a client of yours. Just, yeah, go forward with grace and understanding rather than judgment is, I think, always the line I like to toe. So this has been the episode on depression, and I'll see you next time.